In 2000, we bought an abandoned 100-acre farm in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. We spent years cleaning it up, built a new house, and now are trying to make it a functional homestead farm. Welcome to Red Toolhouse.
Hello everybody, welcome to Red Toolhouse. I'm excited to say that the homestead got exponentially cuter over the weekend. And no, it's not because I bought a new pair of stretchy pants. It's actually because we had our first farrowing. So if you've followed the channel for a while, you kind of know our situation. We did some AI on 3 of our sows, and the first one, Merida, who took first, she farrowed this weekend. I had her scheduled to farrow on Saturday, and I checked on her Friday evening, and she was actually in labor. Her farrowing started Friday night around 11 p.m. That's when she went into labor, and she actually labored till about 5 a.m. And I did stay up with her all the way through. Just one of those things that they could probably handle it well themselves, but in the back of your mind you just wonder, is there an issue? Is there a chance I'm going to have to go in and pull piglets? All those things. So I just like to be there, hands-on, and just keep an eye on it. It made for a late night and made for a drowsy Saturday, but it rained most of the day Saturday anyway, so it gave me an opportunity to kind of sleep in and hang out and do some things there. So I got to stay up and watch her farrow. So what are the results? Well, the results were 11 piglets hit the ground, but 2 of them were stillborn. Actually, pig number 8 and pig number 11, the last one, were stillborn. So it's kind of odd. The number 8 pig was a huge piglet, scale-wise compared to the rest. So I'm wondering if that's maybe why there was an issue being stillborn. It may have had some issues in the birth canal. It may have had some issues before that point too, but it was a pretty good sized piglet. I was going to show you pictures of the size difference between number 8 and number 11, the 2 stillborns, but quite frankly, with the way YouTube is now and everything, I'm a little reluctant to do that. But and I'm not sure everybody wants to see a dead piglet anyway. But so yeah, so 2 piglets there that were stillborn. The rest, really good looking pigs. Here's some small ones. First one was a little tiny, as usually happens there. But so far, and 9 good ones running around, being a little playful, nursing. Mama's doing well. That's her in the background there. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but she's chowing down. She's back to eating, got her appetite back. She's drinking a lot of water. I keep a lot of water in there for her. So this is the 3rd litter for Merida, and as far as stacking up to her previous litters, she's done pretty well. This is a little bit lower. 9 viable is the lowest she's done. Before I had 10 viable and 13 viable. So it is what it is. We'll do some assessments when we see the other two sows farrow later this year to see if we need to make any adjustments there, make any changes. But it was an interesting farrowing. The one thing she didn't do that I was surprised was she did not turn. And what I've experienced with our sows, you usually have that turn halfway through farrowing. So as you know, you may not know, but as a sow's uterus is kind of V-shaped or Y-shaped, it has 2 horns. Usually the piglets pass from the first. In our experience, the sows get up, turn around, walk around a little bit, pass some afterbirth, lay back down and kind of go through another round of farrowing. Sometimes they'll even lay on a different side. She hadn't passed any afterbirth, had not turned, and had 10 piglets on the ground. So I was really surprised. After her 10th piglet, afterbirth started to come. I thought, okay, she's going to turn at any moment now. Well, she never got up and turned. And at one point she did actually get up and walk around just for a little bit and laid back down. Passed another afterbirth, and the number 11 pig, the real runt, really small pig, passed that about the same time. So again, I'm no expert on this. My estimation is that maybe just 1 horn was full. So that may come back and say, okay, the semen breeding that I did I get a good take? I did get a lot of doses. I got 3 doses in her, or it could have just been developmental. So. But I'm very happy with 9. We'll see how that goes. You always want to have more for more options, but 9 was a good turnout. Now, some of you see the footage that I have here of that night. You may be seeing a major red flag there, and maybe already ready to comment. You see, I've got a heat light on. Now, I'm a big advocate of not using heat lamps in your barn at all for your chickens, for your pigs, or anything. But as things would go in West Virginia when it comes to weather, Friday night we had snow in the forecast, but we actually ended up getting it got down to 23 degrees Fahrenheit that night, so it was very cold. So colder than what was expected. So of course, it seems to happen when I go to farrow here recently. It seems like the temperature always drops well below normal. So you made sure she had plenty of hay, and also put together a quick makeshift cover for the barn. Again, our barn is still open. As you can see, I don't have it completely enclosed. So I made this makeshift cover with plastic, using plastic sheeting and some 1/2-inch conduit just to make a little roof lower over her farrowing stall where she had nested. She had built a very large nest, and I'm making a point to put a lot of hay weeks in advance of when I know I'm going to have a pig farrow. They get in, stir it up, chew it up, do all that type of stuff. It gets a lot of dust in it. And my plan had actually paid off, because when they get in there and they stir that up, and it gets a little moisture in it, gets a little dampness, it's mixed with dirt and it's chewed up, it actually starts to compost a little bit. So sure enough, I got in there with her. And again, I'm not saying do this if your sow's farrowing, she's already stressed out. You get in there and hang out with them, that could obviously make them more stressed, or it could actually make them very aggressive. So be warned. But I got in there, and as I was kind of moving some hay around, I didn't want her to be in a situation that she would lay on something. I noticed that just a couple inches below, that hay was actually putting off some heat. If I had to guess, I didn't have a thermometer. If I had to guess, it was probably in the mid-90s. So it had composted a little bit and was putting off some heat there. So that ground temperature coming off that hay was very helpful as well. But the heat light, I put the heat light in, but if you use a heat light, I never ever walked away from it. Even if I was to go around to the front of the barn in the middle of the night to check on something, if Kelly wasn't here, then I would unplug the heat light, because you just don't want to take the risk of setting your barn on fire, killing all your animals, losing all your equipment, losing your structure. In the grand scheme of things, it's really not worth it, to the heat that you would get versus the risk of losing everything. So what's interesting, in fact, when I first put the heat light in there, I just took a couple steps back, and she positioned herself a different way and just with her snout shoved a whole bunch of hay right up against the heat light. So within 10 seconds, bang, combustible material against the heat light. So quickly grabbed it, moved it, put it in a different spot. So yeah, I had that light on, obviously, so A, to help me see, B, to provide a little bit of heat, but I don't advise that unless you're going to just sit there and watch it the entire night like I did. I had it on until about 5 in the morning, and then when I went up to the house to call it a night, I unplugged the light and put it inside. I figured everyone would prefer to see piglets versus me standing in front of the camera, so I'll put the camera in this position here, and we'll continue on. And coming through this process, being 36 hours after farrowing, I thought I wanted to shoot this video to not only give everyone an update, but also to discuss some questions that I've had that have popped up over the past couple weeks. And these questions, of course, are all dealing with pigs and farrowing in our situation here. So the first question I had was, do I let the sows eat the afterbirth and or the stillborn piglets? And if you look at it, if you've raised pigs, then you know that the sow will really clean up after herself. You kind of think of the non-domestic pigs, what they would do. They would have a nest out in the woods. If they had afterbirth, if they had stillborn, they would consume those, of course, to keep the predators from being drawn in. And I do let the sows consume the afterbirth. It may sound a little gross, but there's actually a ton of protein. If they're interested in it and they're going to take it, I'm not going to deny that to them and let them eat it. The first year, I'd actually buried the afterbirth, and then as I got reading more about it and researching it, realized, no, I need to leave that there. One thing I don't do, I don't let them consume the stillborn piglets. A, it just seems kind of weird to me. B, I don't know that I'd ever want to watch that. That's just something that's kind of taboo. And I don't know that anybody's made any connection to it, or would probably call me crazy if I said, but if a sow's eating a stillborn piglet, would that ever prompt her to eat her live piglets? I've heard horror stories of sows after giving birth consuming the piglets, and people having to take the piglets away from the sow because she's consuming them all. So I just don't give that an option to plant that seed of desire in her mind. So I did take those stillborns out and just buried them. Well, the second question I have is why don't you use farrowing crates? And yeah, for those of you who don't know what a farrowing crate is, it's basically just a cage that you put the sow in that forces her on her side. It doesn't allow her to get up and move around during labor. And that may sound very cruel. It may seem like that would stress the pig out more, which I think it would stress it out more. But the whole reason for it is, of course, is to keep the sow from crushing a piglet as she gets up and moves around. Obviously, she's dealing with labor. She's uncomfortable. She's got to get in positions to get more comfortable and to obviously try to facilitate the birth. And of course the piglets, they're just flopping around. They're like, octopus. They're just, spaghetti noodles flopping around. So they really can't get out of the way very well. So it can be an issue where you have loss right there during the birthing process because the sow crushes. Another reason why I wanted to hang out, if I felt that she was in a situation to lay on a piglet, I'd jump in there real quick and pull one out. I had to do that twice in that, a 6-hour window there. And no guarantee that she was actually going to crush it. It's just when I thought it was getting close, I'm like, I'm going to jump in there and do that. So get a little more hands-on there. And again, I'm not a purist. I'm not saying that if you have a farrowing crate, you're an evil pig raiser, and if you don't use them, then you're a good one. I thought long and hard about it, and even thought about it last night. It's like, man, I wish I had a farrowing crate. But go back and forth on that. So I'd love to hear comments. Those of you guys that raise pigs, if you use farrowing crates, please comment below. Again, I'm not saying that you're in the wrong in doing so. I'd love to hear the pros and cons of what you've run into if you've used those crates. Well, the third question I have is, do you lock the sow in? Do you keep her on pasture? Do you let her go out to pasture, or do you keep her locked in? Well, as you can see by my setup here, I've got her closed in, and even closed in more than I normally do. I ended up closing my big sorting gate, so she has to stay in this portion of the stall. And the reason why is we've had so much rain. We are almost double the amount of rainfall that we normally get in February and March. And so you can see some of these shots that I've had where there's just a lot of mud and there's a lot of standing water. So the only way that the sow could leave the stall right now is to go through this very deep mud that they've wallowed out over the past couple weeks. So actually the night of farrowing, my 8th piglet that came out, he was pretty active. So he went around, he nursed. Once he got cleaned up and got his legs under him, and he started kind of just walking around this stall area, and actually made it all the way over to the gate when I had the gate open, and actually got out in the mud. And I just happened to be looking at him and jumped over there, but I would definitely have lost him because he would have stepped right into this deep mud. He would have drowned, or he would have died from exposure because there's just so much standing water there. So I quickly closed that gate, latched it down, and kept her closed in. So when it comes time to let her out here in the next day or so, I'll actually let her out that way, but I'm going to put up a board that the piglets can't go that direction, and I'll take down some of the boards to the left of the stall so they can actually come out here into the area where I hang out, and there's a lot of grass here. They're not going to go far because the sow will keep an eye on, or the sow will keep them close to her. Another question I had was worming. Is this the time that I worm? And I don't worm the sows or the piglets anywhere near farrowing, of course. There's enough stress on them right now. The piglets are too small. What I normally do is at weaning time, and I usually wean at 8 weeks. So at weaning time, I give a dose of worming medicine for everybody. So I worm all of my sows, even those that haven't farrowed. I worm those and worm all the piglets at weaning. So, and I do use injectable wormer. So so it's day 2 of my first farrowing. So what's next? What's the schedule look like going forward? Well, next Saturday we will castrate. So they'll be about 7 to 8 days old at that point. So that's when we'll get our castration done, hopefully. And if you want to see details on how we castrate, episode 20 from last year was our castration video. Unfortunately, my crew that helped me castrate, as we know, Charlie passed away, and Fred has moved to Georgia. So I don't have my crew to help as we've had in the past, but we'll get it taken care of. So castration will be next. Also, we'll introduce feed to the piglets, and by introducing, basically, as I'm feeding the sow, the piglets have access to that bowl. So I really watch them to see how quickly they start going over there and licking, tasting, eating some of that feed. and watch. So if they really start getting on it, even though they're nursing as much as they can, I mean, they get crazy about nursing, then if I see them starting to eat feed, then I'll go ahead and put some feed out for them to have free access to, because I want that transition to be smooth. I want them to break it in easily. I've read cases and I've seen situations where people don't provide feed at all. The piglets are just nursing. You get to a certain point and you do a hard switch over to feed. And it could give an opportunity for scours, give an opportunity for some dehydration there as their digestive system has to adjust to going from just milk to some solid food. So I like to just let them taste it in little bits and get it going as they see fit, and then of course always have it available for them going forward. I'll also let them out on pasture. As I mentioned, I'll take some of the lower boards down in the barn, so it gets them out in this area. And this area is a pig-free zone. I've got nice grass, clover, all that type of stuff. So I don't let my sows in this area, but I'll let the piglets come out. And they usually come out and they'll run around those first 4 to 6 weeks. They're running around here, playing and carrying on. And they really don't do a lot of damage. They're just not big enough to do the damage. And they can, of course, always run back to home base where mom's hanging out there. And that allows them to run around, not have to go through the mud issues that I have right now. But also, gives them access to some pasture where they're not in with the big girls yet. And then, of course, we'll eventually let them out on pasture. Probably about 4 weeks, maybe. We'll just see how they do and how our weather holds up, and see how much mud we have. But then let them out and let them enjoy the pasture and let them run around. Knock on wood, I've never had issues with predators when I have piglets that young out on pasture. We haven't had any coyote issues or those type of things that are coming down trying to kill the pigs. And the last thing we do is wean. So we'll wean at that 8-week window, and we'll document that because I need to build a new weaning stall, and that weaning stall is where I also train them on electric fence. So I'll set it up that they get their electric fence training, they get wormed, and they get weaned all at once. So try to do some function stacking there as I've got them sequestered for that 7 to 10 days. So we'll see how that goes. Well, that's our update on our pigs. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Leave some comments below if you have any input. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't. And also check us out on our website, redtoolhouse.com. And you'll see updates, blog posts, all those type of things. All right, take care, everybody.